Amidst the political drama of the last 24 hours, one thing, of course, did solidify, and that was President-elect Joe Biden's hold on the Senate. So the Democrats in control. Markets appear to be pricing in expectations of what that means for the implementation of Democratic policy. Do they go too far when they do that? Benjamin Tal is with us, Deputy Chief Economist at CIBC Capital Markets. Benny, great to have you with us. And I mean, I imagine you've had many thoughts watching, as we all have, over this past 24 hours, the unbelievable events unfolding. And there in the background, of course, you get the election in Georgia of two Democrats. What do you think the implications are that we should be thinking about economically and therefore for markets about that, the policy change that will be delivered here?
Yes, I think that the temptation is to declare that this is a game changer, and it's not. It's not, because that's not the way the Senate works. As you know, Biden can try to do something, and some Democratic senators will vote against that. It's not that everybody will be voting with him all the time. Same goes for the Republicans. So it's not clear that he will be able to do everything that he wants. So we are going to get Biden, but it's not going to be like a huge wave. It's a little wave, if you wish, a blue wave. And that's basically what I'm seeing. So clearly he will be able to move in the short term on the $2,000 check. That's something that is happening in February, which is a significant boost to the economy. And what we see in markets now is clearly a reflection of this optimism that GDP growth in the first quarter will be much better given this injection of money. Infrastructure will do much better than expected, I believe. That would be a big winner. But beyond that, can he raise $3.1 trillion in taxes? Not so sure in this kind of environment. So it's not going to be a game changer by any stretch of the imagination.
One thing that we will do is increase, of course, the size of the stimulus that we expect to pass. So the bigger number, that may well have implications on the U.S. dollar. U.S. dollar weakness, a theme as we head into 2021. Do you worry at all about what that will do to the loonie and whether our exporting nation will suffer as that U.S. dollar weakness continues?
Yes, I'm very worried. I think that the Canadian dollar has no business being where it is now, and it's all about the general weakness of the American dollar. Now, the fact that I'm worried is not so important, but the Bank of Canada is worried. Clearly, they're worried about it. They are measuring it more and more. The question is, what do you do about it? We know that we're going to get a lift from the U.S. given this stimulus. That should help a little bit. Canada, we saw the exports number today. They are getting better and better. That's one thing. At the same time, we have the dollar that is going higher and higher and higher. And the question is, at one point, the Bank of Canada has to do something. They can talk, but they have to do something, or maybe they should be doing something. Whatever it is, one possibility, if they're really desperate, is to actually cut interest rates again to, let's say, 10 basis points. Remember, policy rates in Canada are actually the highest among the OECD members. So we have room to cut. This is not our forecast, but it's interesting to think about.
Would that concern you in terms of household debt? We have seen housing markets incredibly strong, especially in the hot markets of Toronto and Vancouver. If we saw the central banks get rate, and it's an interesting point you make, Benny, they don't have to go by 25 basis points. They can go down above zero, but just slightly so. What would that do to debt levels here?
You know what? I'm not too concerned about debt levels at this point because, quite frankly, when you cut interest rates from extremely low base, another 10, 15 basis points will not make a huge difference. Quite frankly, it will be more a currency story. What I'm worried about is not debt. That's not the issue. The issue is that if the Bank of Canada moves and nothing happens, and the loonie continues to go up, that's when you realize that the Bank of Canada is unable to do anything. And sometimes saying that you are going to use this weapon is more effective than actually using it. And I think that's more or less where we are now.
I want you to address something else that's an interesting data point. We saw both manufacturing and services in the U.S. in expansion and above expectations. So in other words, even before the stimulus checks are really hitting people's wallets, the U.S. economy is still doing okay, still expanding. Is that a surprise? What do we make of that?
Well, so let's distinguish between the manufacturing, the goods and services. The goods segment of the economy is doing fine. Now, the numbers that we got today are a bit misleading. I will not get too much into it. It reflects some supply chain issues that lifted the service index, and therefore the number is a bit too rosy relative to what's really happening in the real world. However, clearly manufacturing overall is doing better than expected. And the reason I believe that for a given level of infection, the US economy is still much more open than the European economies, than the Canadian economy. So when they are more open, more activity is happening. And until you see major restrictions in the US, you will not see this softening that we're going to see in Canada or in Europe that we're already seeing actually in Europe.
So just in terms of where you think Canada should go from here, if the bank doesn't act, if we do see continued dollar weakness, what else can be done to try to help? We do have the federal government, of course, pondering different types of stimulus here. It doesn't really help exporters who are priced out of a market by a weak US dollar, but what can be done?
That's a tough one because, again, the next few months we have to focus on the vaccine and we have to focus on the virus. That's the only thing they can do. And I think that we really have to get our act together when it comes to distributing the vaccine. Mr. Trudeau is asking provinces what he can do to help, to coordinate, better coordinate the response. We need to really get moving on the vaccine. That's the number one priority everywhere, but clearly in Canada. Beyond that, we clearly need to help small businesses. I do believe that consumer spending will be strong. Small businesses is the issue, and we have to make sure that when they are ready, they get the help that they need. One of them is clearly a rental solution that we discussed in the past. Now what we're seeing in the market is better than it was before, but it's not sufficient to really help small businesses to succeed in this environment.
Benjamin Tal, always good to have you with us. Always count on you for an original thought. Benny Tal, Deputy Chief Economist at CIBC. Thank you for that.